Hi, welcome to this week's math video. This week we're going to be focusing on adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Before you get any further in this video, I want to make sure that you printed your notes from the email. You can follow along with me on these notes. In a previous video, we learned all about multiples and factors. So when I notice in some fractions that I'm trying to add that the denominators are not the same, I need to think, I need to find a common multiple. That's when we would use that tool of finding the least common multiple. Now over here, when I see a fraction like this with maybe some larger digits, I need to think, I need to find a common factor so I can simplify it. So that is when we would use the skill of finding the greatest common factor when we need to simplify our fractions. Now when you're finding the multiples of a number, what you're really doing is skip counting by the number, or you could also notice that you're really multiplying times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, and it can go on infinitely. So this list can be very, very long. Usually we only need to find a few, but you notice that the multiples of 24 are either equal to 24 or greater. Now when you're trying to find the factors of 24, you can use a factor rainbow like we learned, or a T-chart. And so we're finding two digits that you can multiply together that equals 24. So we found that 1 times 24 equals 24, 2 times 12 equals 24, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. Or you could put it in a T-chart like this. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. These are a small list of factors. You'll notice that the factors of 24 are either going to be equal to 24 or less. All right, now we're going to be using these two skills as we jump right into adding and subtracting fractions. So let's get started. Okay, friends, look for this question on the paper in front of you and follow along with me, and we can do it together. It says, each day the polar bear at Madison Zoo eats 1/10 of a bucket of trout and 1/2 of a bucket of salmon. How many buckets of fish does the polar bear eat daily? And then it gives us a little reminder to make sure that we simplify our answer. So step 1, I need to decide, am I adding or subtracting? Well, they want to know how much fish this polar bear eats for the entire day, so we're just going to put those two fractions together and add them. So that will be what I write first. So follow along and write on your paper. So we're going to add 1/2 plus 1/10. Okay, right away I notice that my denominators are different, so I know I need to find the least common multiple. All right, so I'm going to come over here to the side and just make a list of my multiples for 2 and 10. So I just take that 2 and I start multiplying it, making it bigger and bigger. I could skip count, but I'm just demonstrating how to do it. And some kids are like, well, how long of a list do I need? Well, you do it until you find one that they have in common. Oh, well, look at there, a 10. I bet this is going to be pretty easy because look at this. My first multiple is 10. Okay, so here's the first one they have in common. So I'm going to change the denominators to 10. I don't have to change this one, do I? Because it's already a 10. So I'm just going to write that. This one I need to change into a 10. And over here, the way I got to that was by multiplying by 5. So I'm going to do that to the bottom and the top. A lot of kids forget to also do it to the top. You need to do it to both. So 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. All right. So step 3, we go ahead and do our adding or subtracting. Now when you add and subtract denominators that are the same, it's really easy. You just write it down again. You don't even have to add it. You just write it down. You only have to add the top numbers. So 5 plus 1 would be 6. Okay, so I'm noticing that my digits are a little big and I'm suspecting that I can simplify that. Sometimes you can't, sometimes you can. So let's check. Step 4 is always try to simplify. So we're going to try to find the greatest common factor. So I'm going to make a T-chart for my 6 and my 10. Okay, so I know 1 times 6 equals 6 and 2 times 3 equals 6. That's it. For 10, I know 1 times 10 equals 10 and 2 times 5 equals 10. That's it too. Not very many. So I need to find the greatest one that they have in common. They both have a 1, but I need the biggest one they have in common. They both have a 2. So I'm going to take that 2 and I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by the 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And there is our answer. So the polar bear eats 3/5 of a bucket of fish every day. Very good. All right, friends, let's go ahead and look at this next problem. It says Andy began his pizza delivery route with 2/3 of a tank of gas in his car. When he made it back to the pizzeria, 1/6 of a tank of gas was left. How much gas did Andy use? And then it gives us a note and a reminder to simplify. Okay, so step 1, we need to decide if we're adding or subtracting here. Well, he started with 2/3 of a tank of gas, and we know that he used some. And it also says that there was 1/6 of the tank of gas was left. That's our clue word that we'll subtract. So we'll be subtracting. So we're going to write that down. And you can see right away that our denominators are different. So follow along with me on your paper and we'll do this together. So we need to find the least common multiple so we can make those denominators the same. So I'm going to take that 3 and 6 over here. And I'm going to start multiplying. Oh, look at that. This one's going to be pretty quick. Sometimes it takes a while and sometimes it does not. We found the least common multiple is 6. Okay. So I'm going to keep this fraction the same because it's already a 6, which is nice. And then I'm going to change this. So how did I make this 3 a 6 over here? I multiplied by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2 here and multiply by 2 here. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. All right. So step 3, we're going to go ahead and subtract these fractions. Since the denominators are the same, we're just going to put that down here. And we only have to subtract the top. 4 minus 1. Okay, so now I need to make sure that I simplify. So I'm going to find the greatest common factor of 3 and 6. make a t-chart. So I can only say 1 times 3 for 3. Those are the only two factors for 3. And I can say 1 times 6 and 2 times 3 equals 6. All right, so I need to find the biggest one that they have in common, and that's the 3. So I'm going to take that and divide the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And we are finished. So Andy had a half a tank of gas that he used to go on that pizza delivery. Very good. All right, follow along with me with this one. It says, Harold and Kenji own neighboring cornfields. Harold harvested 5/8 of an acre of corn on Monday, and Kenji harvested 1/2 of an acre. How many more acres did Harold harvest than Kenji? Okay, so here's a big clue for me when we're trying to figure out if we're adding or subtracting. How many more? Whenever they say that, you know right away, I'm going to be subtracting these to find the difference. All right, so we're going to take that 5/8 and subtract 1/2. And right away I see the denominators are different, so I will be finding the least common multiple. So I'm going to put that 8 and 2 over here. I'm going to start multiplying. Follow along on your paper as well. That way you'll have some really good examples to follow whenever you come to one of these problems. Ooh, look, 8. Yay! All right, so 8 is the least common multiple. So since this one's already 8, I can just write that down, no problem. Okay, so how did I make that 2 an 8 over here? I multiplied by 4, so I'm going to do that to the bottom and the top. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so we're going to go ahead and subtract these. And since the bottom number is, the denominators are the same, I'm just going to put that as the denominator. And then I only have to subtract the top. 5 minus 4 equals 1. Okay, and your last step is always to try to simplify. But looky here, if you ever notice that the numerator is a 1, guess what? You can't get any more simple than that. So we are finished. Just 1. We don't have to change anything. So this, we know, is the answer. Very good. That one was a little bit quicker. Okay, last one that we're going to do together. So at the local nursery, 1/2 of the plants for sale are flowers, and another 1/6 of them are bushes. What fraction of the plants for sale are either flowers or bushes? Okay, so we need to decide, are we adding or subtracting? Well, they're saying they want to know what fraction of the plants for sale are either flowers or bushes. So that means they want to know both of these. How many are there altogether? So we're going to go ahead and add those. So we have 1/2 and 1/6. And again, denominators are different, so we have to find the least common multiple. So we're going to take these numbers over here. Eventually, you'll be able to do some of this in your head. For now, I want you to go through this process and make sure you're accurate. Ooh, 6, yay. Okay. Alrighty, so we got our least common multiple. So it's a 6, so since this is already a 6, I can just write it down. How did I change this 2 into a 6? I multiplied by 3. Multiplied by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, so I'm going to add these fractions now. And since the 6's, the denominators are both 6, I can just write the 6 down. And I only have to add the top. All right, so last step is always to try to simplify. So we're going to find the greatest common factor of 4 and 6. So I'm going to come over here, take that 4 and the 6 and make some T-charts. Okay, what two numbers can I multiply to equal 4? I can say 1 times 4, and I can also say 2 times 2. For 6, I can say 1 times 6 and 2 times 3, and that's it. So I'm looking and I can see that the 2's are the greatest common factor. So I'm going to take that over here, divide the top and the bottom. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. All right, so 2/3 of their plants are either flowers or bushes. All right, friends, now it's time for you to show what you know. Go ahead and read this question carefully. Do the work on a piece of paper. Don't do it in your head. Okay? Try to do all the steps on a piece of paper just like we went over today. And you can look at our examples to see the steps. All right? Do your best. All right, friends, here's number 2 for you. Read it carefully, follow all the steps, and do your best. Number 3, you're doing great. Hang in there. Read it carefully and do your best. Last question, friends. You can do it. Hang in there. Take your time. Read it carefully and do your best. All right, friends, I want to remind you about grit. Grit is having a continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition, right? We don't quit. We keep trying, and when we make a mistake, we learn from our mistake, and we keep going. We keep trying. So just remember, don't quit. Get grit. And it's not just with math. It's in all areas of your life. If you have a sport that you like, you know that. You have to practice and keep trying. If you like basketball, you have to shoot probably 1,000 free throws before you start to see progress. So don't quit. Get grit. Bye, everyone.